Seasteading was the stuff of the future, but not anymore. What's in the news with stories on military draft for women, future states of emergency, FBI lies, rent control, dismissing pot convictions, and freedom of the press. Finally, an Ask Me Anything with questions on feminism, just war doctrine, and voting. This episode is brought to you by NordVPN, the easiest, cheapest, and fastest way to get secure and private access to the internet that I've ever seen, and I use it every single day. Also brought to you by Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom, helping you to become a smarter and more informed libertarian than ever before for just 24 cents a day.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week from the home of the 27th Annual Milton Winter Carnival, where you can ride in an antique Model T Ford snowmobile driving on ice ponds. This is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at The Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 123. Seasteading is a reality. And it's Tuesday, March 5th, 2019, when there have already been more than 139 people killed by police this year, and the United States debt clock shows us at more than $22 trillion, $70 billion, $200 million in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. The very first seastead is in international waters, folks. Welcome to a new age. On February 2nd, after almost a month of preparation and waiting for ideal wave conditions, Ocean Builders has raised the world's very first seastead in international waters 12 nautical miles out from Phuket, Thailand. Ocean Builders is a company that was designed for one thing: building seasteads. They say they are a small group of entrepreneurial engineers that are tired of talking about seasteading and are determined to make this thing happen. And they've done it, folks. For those of you who may be new to this, seasteading is the concept of creating permanent dwellings at sea, called seasteads, outside the territory claimed by any government. The term is a combination of the words sea and homesteading. Now, if you want to know everything you could possibly know about seasteading, I highly recommend the book Seasteading: How Floating Nations Will Restore the Environment, Enrich the Poor, Cure the Sick, and Liberate Humanity from Politicians. Bonus points to anybody if you get the audiobook, which was narrated by one of my very own audiobook coaches, Sean Allen Pratt. So back to this first ever seastead. Ocean Builders has built a spar-designed seastead over the past several months, which consists of a large steel cylinder that sits vertically in the water, with a fiberglass platform sitting atop the spar, which acts as the living space. The spar was placed into the water on January the 3rd, and the platform placed in the water a week later in preparation for this event. Now, with the first single-family home built to remain floating in international waters, Ocean Builders has set a new path for those that wish to seek a new frontier by living on the sea permanently without the influence of legacy governments. I love that term, legacy governments. While this is merely a prototype to prove the concept, two brave souls have already moved into the seastead and will be documenting their journey through the Ocean Builders website, their YouTube channel, and the Ocean Builders Facebook page. Chad Owartowski and Saprini Tepdat, Nadia, Bitcoin Girl Thailand, are the first seasteaders, but they are anxious to have many new neighbors come and join them. The next phase of the Ocean Builders plan is to make 20 more seasteads with an upgraded design which will include a deeper spar for even more stability and a living space which is not just a bare-bones prototype design, but built around a quality living experience. Those first 20 customers will get their seasteads almost at cost as a way of rewarding the pioneers willing to take a chance on something new. They will also be instrumental in setting the standards of seasteading governance and culture for those that come and join them in the future. The steel spar is 20 meters long and 2 meters in diameter at 14 millimeters in thickness. The bottom is ballasted with concrete and sand, but the spar can be filled with water to lower it during calm weather, and it can be pumped out to bring the height up so the platform is positioned high above the waves. This specific seastead is able to withstand 5-meter waves, but will be sitting in the Andaman Sea with the average wave height of about half a meter, so it's perfectly safe. The platform is the living space, sitting several meters above the water. It's a 6-meter wide octagon shape with 2 floors. The bottom floor has a kitchen, a bathroom, an eating area, and a bedroom. The top floor is an open deck area covered by a solar panel frame which will create electricity for the seastead. The plan is to sell all of these seasteads at a price lower than the average single-family home. But what exactly does that mean? I mean, single-family homes cost different amounts around the country. The response on the Ocean Builders website is, "We are trying to keep the price as close as possible to an average U.S. family home for the minimal seastead, with the option to add features, such as air conditioning, more solar, upgraded kitchen, etc. The first 20 will be sold at cost." And Ocean Builders also says, "For now, we are targeting a price of $150,000 for the minimum price of a bare-bones seastead. We're not yet sure how bare-bones that would be, nor what may be included. Likely close to what the prototype has, a no-frills seastead. Closer to $200,000 would likely give you a move-in ready seastead with a nice kitchen, water, solar electricity, etc. But from what we've seen, there are 4 types of seasteads that will need to be built: an owner's version, a timeshare version, a long-term rental version, and a short-stay version. They would all have the same structure and shell, but the setup may be different for each one. For example, a short-stay version may not need to focus as much on the kitchen as the owner's version does. A non-owner's version could come complete with furniture and be move-in ready for customers utilizing bulk purchases to bring costs down. Now, guys, this is just so goddamn exciting. While other companies are out there like Blue Frontiers, they're taking their time on this and they're testing the water, so to speak. But it could be up to a decade before they get a working seastead in international waters. But here, Ocean Builders is just doing it. Yes, they are going to make mistakes along the way, but they're going to learn from those mistakes and use that knowledge to make it better every single round. They've already learned so much just by putting this first one in the water. Now, I'm personally not quite ready to buy my seastead, but I'll tell you this, it is now very, very close on my radar. The idea of being able to pull up anchor and leave the place I'm currently staying because I'm not happy with the way they run their government is very important to me. I mean, it's damn near impossible to do that on land between countries, although not so difficult between states, like me and thousands of others have proven by moving to New Hampshire for the Free State Project. But even with that, we're still under the purview of the U.S. government. In a seastead, you are under whatever government, or not government, that you choose that week or even that day. Now, I may not be ready to buy my seastead yet, but there are people out there who want to do this now. And if you're one of those, then get your ass moving before the first 20 are sold out. To become one of the first seasteading pioneers and forge a new future with freedom-loving individuals from around the world, or just to get updates and information on what's going on, go to ocean.builders and sign up. Again, that's the website ocean.builders. Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In the draft is theft news, a federal judge in Texas has declared that an all-male military draft is unconstitutional, ruling that the time has passed for a debate on whether women belong in the military. The decision deals the biggest legal blow to the selective service system since the Supreme Court upheld the draft registration process in 1981. In the 1981 ruling, Roster v. Goldberg, the court ruled that a male-only draft was fully justified because women were ineligible for combat roles. But U.S. District Judge Gray Miller ruled that while historical restrictions on women serving in combat may have justified past discrimination, men and women are now equally able to fight. In 2015, the Pentagon lifted all restrictions for women in military service. The case was brought by the National Coalition for Men, a men's rights group, and 2 men who argued an all-male draft was unfair. Of course it is. Men who fail to register with the Selective Service system at their 18th birthday can be denied public benefits, such as federal employment and student loans. Women cannot register for Selective Service. The ruling comes as an 11-member commission is studying the future of the Selective Service system, including whether women should be included or whether there should continue to be draft registration at all. The U.S. has maintained an all-volunteer military after the draft was discontinued in 1973, but the Selective Service system was reactivated in 1980 as a contingency, in case military conscription ever becomes necessary again. The National Commission on Military, National, and Public Service released an interim report last month giving no hints on where it would come down on these questions. But Commission Chairman Joe Heck told USA Today, "I don't think we will remain with the status quo." Quoting the Supreme Court's ruling overturning bans on same-sex marriage, Miller ruled that restrictions based on gender must substantially serve an important governmental interest today. Now make sure you pay particularly close attention to that sentence. I'm going to read it again. Quote, "Restrictions based on gender must substantially serve an important governmental interest today." In other words, if the government has a reason to, they can ignore your rights whenever they want, as long as they can show an important governmental interest, and then they can kidnap you and throw you into a war. Remember that the next time you ask the government for your rights. Look, it's way past time to end the slavery draft system, and I think the quickest way to end it is to have women being forced to sign up for the Selective Service. This will increase the numbers of people who are vocally against the slavery system by a large margin, and that is the only thing that has a chance to stop it. While this judicial decision is purely symbolic as a declaratory judgment instead of an injunction, it will still have an impact on the final decisions that are being made about this. I applaud this decision 100%. In a state of emergency news, as I predicted when Trump declared a national emergency to fund his wall, now Senator Elizabeth Warren said that she would declare national emergencies for climate change, gun violence, and student loan debt if she were elected president. Host of CBS's The Late Late Show, James Corden, asked Warren, in light of the president's Friday declaration, what would constitute a national emergency to her if she were president. Warren said, "Oh, let's do a list. Climate change, gun violence, student loan debt right off the top. That's what we ought to be working on. And we ought to be working on it together. Congress, the president, as a country, those are things we should be working on." Now, I don't think anybody is terribly surprised by this nonsense, even though it was people exactly like Warren saying that Trump did not have the legal authority to claim a state of emergency to build his wall. Warren said back on February 16th, "I think that the president is wrong. I don't think that what's happening at the border is a national emergency, and I don't think he has legal authority to declare it a national emergency. That's why it's going straight to the courts." Yet, now that Trump has made his move, she is more than willing to do the exact same thing to deal with her pet project of favorite list of problems that she'd rather ignore Congress on. Well, fuck Warren in the neck with an Indian feather. Are you looking for a way to protect your online presence quickly, easily, and inexpensively while still surfing the net with high speed? Well, NordVPN is the best way that I've ever found to do just that. With over 2,500 servers worldwide, they cover every continent except Antarctica. But, as they say, that's only because penguins just don't get the internet. They also offer double data encryption, which encrypts data not once, but twice. And they never log what you do and where you go on the internet. Also, NordVPN is fast, the fastest VPN service that I've ever used. They have apps for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android, so you can protect all of your traffic from all of your devices with NordVPN. Starting as low as $3.29 per month, they're also inexpensive, and they take Bitcoin too. With NordVPN, you can securely access any website from anywhere around the world, safely share files via P2P networks, and enjoy the fastest VPN experience without compromising your online security and privacy. Get signed up for the VPN service that I personally use every time I hit the internet at thelavaflow.com/VPN. Again, that's thelavaflow.com/VPN. In Bad Boys news, an FBI scientist has been shown to make statements in court linking defendants to crimes, even when his own lab results showed the exact opposite. Court records and FBI lab files show statements by prosecutors or Richard Vorder veering from his original conclusions in at least 3 different cases. Vorder, who earned a doctorate in geology 28 years ago, came to the FBI after abandoning his hopes of becoming an astronaut. He had no crime laboratory experience, but he quickly became a force in the forensic sciences. Now 55, he is the most prominent member of the Forensic Audio, Video, and Image Analysis Unit at the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia. The unit's comparisons can supposedly advance investigations by sharpening pictures and narrowing the list of suspects. But most of the image examiner's lab work has no scientific basis proving their methods are even reliable and that their findings are correct at all. A ProPublica investigation published in January found that image examiners' methods have never had a strong scientific foundation. The Bureau's use of the unit's findings as trial evidence troubles many experts and raises new questions about the role of the FBI lab as a standard setter in forensic science. Such shortcomings could have led judges to block image analysis from criminal trials, but Vorder single-handedly built a body of case law that has kept the FBI unit's testimony admissible to the courts. His 22-year-old comparison of blue jeans is a legal foundation for most photo comparison methods. The FBI lab's image unit has routinely used unproven techniques since the 1960s, but Vorder embraced and expanded them according to court records and his published articles. At times, he has given jurors baseless statistics to say the risk of error was almost zero. He's just making this shit up. Studies on several methods in the past decades have found them really unreliable. Vorder has testified for the federal government so often and so successfully that a 2013 Law Review article referred to him as perhaps the most ubiquitous of the United States expert witnesses. In a 2002 trial highlighted in ProPublica's investigation of image analysis, Vorder testified that he had identified a defendant's plaid shirt as the shirt a robber wore to 7 banks during a spree in South Florida. He told jurors only 1 in 650 billion plaid shirts would randomly match as precisely as the defendant's shirt. But none of Vorder lab reports included calculations to support those statistics that he gave in court. He made them up. In fact, the reports said absolutely nothing about how he reached those conclusions. And for one of the robberies, Vorder wrote he could not conclusively match the defendant's shirt to the robber's. But he said the opposite on the stand, according to trial transcripts. And there are other egregious cases involving this asshat, including one where he was asked to use photo analysis to determine if a suspect was the height of the person who committed a robbery that was caught on film. When his analysis said the actual robber could not have been any taller than 6 foot 2 inches, and then come to find out the suspect was actually 6 foot 3 inches, he said the photo method is too imprecise to reliably rule out a suspect. But my question is, if it's so imprecise, why in the fuck has it been used for decades in scores of criminal cases as actual scientific evidence? You know, it's funny how this guy relies on his bullshit science, his pseudoscience, when it fits what they want it to, and then claims the science is imprecise when it doesn't fit the narrative that they're trying to present. Look, this guy is a criminal, and is surely responsible for putting many innocent people in jail with his pseudoscience bullshit. He abuses his authority as a supposed FBI scientist with woo and witch doctor nonsense in front of juries, and innocent people go to jail for it. So much for justice in the U.S. justice system. In rent control news, Oregon is poised to become the first state in the nation to impose statewide limits on how much landlords can raise rents after state lawmakers passed a sweeping measure. The legislation would generally limit rent increases to 7% annually, plus the change in the Consumer Price Index, a measure of inflation. Some smaller and newer apartment buildings would be completely exempt, though. The Democrat-controlled House of Representatives passed the bill by a vote of 35 to 25, largely along party lines, go figure. It had already been approved by the state Senate, and Governor Kate Brown, a Democrat, plans to sign the bill. Rent control has been a particularly divisive topic. Economists tend to agree that rent control makes housing problems worse in the long run. Some say that by limiting the amount of rent that landlords can collect, some landlords will take the properties off the market, limiting the housing supply at a time when there is already a crunch. Doug Bibby, president of the National Multifamily Housing Council, said, "While the intent of rent control laws is to assist lower-income populations, history has shown that rent control exacerbates shortages, makes it harder for apartment owners to make upgrades, and disproportionately benefits higher-income households." Apartment buildings with fewer than 5 units are exempt from this bill. So are housing complexes that are less than 15 years old. If this were such an awesome bill and would have no negative repercussions, then why in the hell are there exceptions? This bill also sharply reduces the circumstances in which tenants can be evicted, making it harder for owners to remove tenants. Look, every bit of this bill is a huge concern for private property rights. This will make many reconsider renting their properties out and will most certainly end in a shortage of housing, as we have seen in other major areas that have tried this nonsense. But it always feels good to Democrats to stick it to the property owners.
Guys, you know Tom Woods. You know his books. You know his podcast. Now learn what he learned to get where he is today in Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom. Get the equivalent of a PhD in libertarian thought and free market economics online for just 24 cents a day while sitting at your computer or driving in your car. You can get it now at thelavaflow.com/woods. Listening to the audios and watching the videos will load you up with the facts, figures, and other ammunition that you need to feel supremely confident and come out on top when arguing politics or economics with yet another devoted socialist or neoconservative. But I repeat myself. Get a yearly membership to Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom for only $89 a year. Or like me, go for the masterclass for lifetime access for only $497 and get tons of bonus material as well, including monthly live sessions with Liberty Classroom faculty and 435 audio-video lessons on government and history that Tom created specifically for the Ron Paul curriculum worth $250 alone. Make sure to sign up today at thelavaflow.com/woods to become a smarter and more informed libertarian than ever before.
In harm reduction news, more than 8,000 pot cases in San Francisco since 1975, including some felony convictions, will be dismissed through an automated clearance system. The announcement came after San Francisco District Attorney George Gascon said last year that he would apply California's recreational marijuana legislation law retroactively. Gascon's office had already cleared 1,230 such cases, but the latest dismissals were identified after his office partnered with a local nonprofit, Code for America. Together, they developed a system that can evaluate if thousands of convictions should be dismissed in a few minutes, the release said. Previously, offenders had to petition the court themselves in a process that the release described as time-consuming, expensive, and confusing. Gascon said prosecutors should act to address the inherent unfairness of penalizing people for activity that is no longer illegal. The release said the city's clearance system could easily be adopted by counties across the state. And it should be. Every single city and state that has people in prison or with a criminal record for doing something that is now legal should immediately begin using this system. In unfit to exist news, a list of thousands of criminal cops was accidentally released under public records laws, and now the California Attorney General is threatening two reporters with legal action for just having a copy of the list. So much for the First Amendment protections of the press, right? What the actual fuck? California apparently keeps a secret list of cops who have been convicted of crimes but doesn't want anyone to access it or even know who the bad cops are. The California State Attorney General is warning reporters that it is illegal to even possess this list of thousands of police officer convictions. Some of the police officers on the list are murderers. Some cops were convicted of crimes that include sexual molestation of children, child pornography, and beating wives, girlfriends, children, or others at home. Other cops on the list have been convicted of shoplifting or embezzlement. Many are DUIs or other drug or alcohol-related crimes, some of which involve a drunk cop killing an innocent person under the influence. Some of the cops are drug dealers. One of the police officers robbed a bank wearing a fake beard. Some of them sexually assaulted people they arrested and detained. Others took bribes, filed false reports, or lied in court. and many of these are current law enforcement officers. The revelations are alarming, but the state's top cop says Californians don't have a right to see them. In fact, Attorney General Xavier Becerra warned two Berkeley-based reporters that simply possessing this never-before-publicly released list of convicted cops is a violation of the law. The California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, known as POST, provided the information last month in response to routine Public Records Act requests from reporters for the investigative reporting program at UC Berkeley and its production arm, Investigative Studios. But when Becerra's office learned about the disclosure, it threatened the reporters with legal action unless they destroyed the records, insisting they are confidential under state law and were released inadvertently. The two journalism organizations have rejected Becerra's demands. Nick Moraes, an attorney with Kecker, Van Nest, and Peters representing Investigative Studios, said the state's assertion that the documents had been released inadvertently was hard to believe, given that Post spent 4 weeks weighing the reporter's request. In a letter to the AG, Moraes wrote that because the documents appear to be a summary of public records, the disclosure exemptions cited by Post and Attorney General Becerra's office do not apply. Finally, he wrote that state law exempts reporters from prosecution for receiving records. Look, this is utter and complete horseshit. There is no way this list was released accidentally. Someone released it on purpose. Then someone else found out and they wanted to reel it back in. Well, guess what? Supposedly in this country, we have freedom of the press for that exact reason. Not that the Constitution means anything to our rulers. They have no issues subverting it, ignoring it, or shitting right on it when it suits their purposes. Therefore, it is unfit to exist.
Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per-episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support.
Ask me anything. Roger will answer your questions about, well, anything. Do you have a question for Roger? Email ama@thelavaflow.com or add your question to the latest AMA thread in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group.
I have a few more questions on my Ask Me Anything queue, so I thought I would knock them out in this week's segment. After this episode airs, I will have new threads for you to ask more questions for me. Those threads will be in the Pax Libertas Productions Podcast Fans Facebook group, the Lava Flow Super Secret Facebook group that's only for supporters, and in Patreon. You can also ask me a question simply by sending an email to ama@thelavaflow.com. So let's jump right in. Christopher O. asks, since I'm doing an at-home college sociology exam and got a question about feminism, I wanted to ask, what's the best and worst thing about feminism? Christopher, feminism used to have a distinct meaning and mission, and that was to bring equal treatment to women under the law, including the right to vote and other things. Look, I think all people, regardless of race, sex, sexual orientation, age, whatever, every single human should be treated equally under the law, period. I've always supported this and always will. However, the current liberal feminism has gone way beyond that, to essentially becoming a mission of hate. Whether it be hating white men or men in general, or anyone who isn't a woman, there is so much hate involved in modern liberal feminism that it has totally lost its way. Now, I use the term liberal feminism for a reason here, though, because there is a growing libertarian feminism movement in this country that has the right ideas. This is something that's sometimes also called individualist feminism. Individualist feminists attempt to change legal systems to eliminate class privileges and gender privileges and to ensure that individuals have equal rights, including an equal claim under the law to their own persons and property. Individualist feminism encourages women to take full responsibility for their own lives. Imagine that. The Association of Libertarian Feminists, founded in 1973 by Tony Nathan, the Libertarian Party's vice presidential nominee in 1972, is one of a number of different kinds of individualist feminist organizations. It takes a strong anti-government stand. Other libertarian feminist organizations include the Ladies of Liberty Alliance and Feminists for Liberty. Now, one of my heroes in liberty and one of the founders of the Voluntarists, Wendy McElroy, is an individualist feminist. I would also consider myself, to a certain extent, an individualist feminist, if truth be told. To me, this is the only type of feminism that carries on the mission of the first-wave feminists, like Susan B. Anthony and others. Thanks for the question, Christopher. Brian K. asks, I know you do nonviolence, but do you believe in the just war doctrine? I think most wars have not been just, but World War II may have been, given how innocent people were executed. Your thoughts? Keep up the great work. First, Brian, I think you may have misspoken, or maybe I miscommunicated. I don't do nonviolence. I do the non-initiation of violence. If someone were to initiate violence against me or my family, I would unleash a hell of violence on that person, unlike anything they've ever seen before, to stop their violence. But having cleared that up, let me speak to the just war doctrine. First of all, war, as we know it today, requires a state. Since a state is unjust and immoral, then war as we know it today is unjust and immoral. However, in a libertarian society, there is nothing that precludes a group of people coming together to commit aggression in the form of war against another group. So we'll take a look at that situation. Wendy McElroy, who I just mentioned a few minutes ago, wrote a brilliant article called Libertarian Just War Theory that I've read several times. It's just an amazing piece that you can get by Googling Wendy McElroy Libertarian Just War Theory. I suggest everyone take a few minutes and read that if they can. In this article, she says, the idea of a libertarian war is not an absurd one. After all, libertarianism permits violence even to the point of killing someone if it is an act of reasonable self-defense. Nothing in libertarianism precludes the possibility of a collectively exercised right to self-defense. Indeed, many libertarians who have been influenced by the philosopher Ayn Rand believe this is one of the few valid functions of a night watchman state. As long as every individual that a state, or a private defense agency, claims to represent has voluntarily assigned his or her right of self-defense to that state, then it is justified in acting collectively on their behalf against an invader. Moreover, if the state acted against only those individuals who are actual aggressors, for example, the individuals in an invading army, it would avoid objections revolving around innocent civilian casualties, for example, victims of a bombed city. Wendy goes on to describe the requirements of such a just war in her article. The specific requirements of a libertarian just war would include the war must have a just origin, that is, it must be in response to aggression. It must be a reasonable response to the level of aggression. It must be declared by a proper authority against a proper enemy, and it must be justly conducted, that is, the rights of innocent individuals cannot be knowingly harmed. In her article, she breaks down each of these 4 items individually. I actually disagree with her assessment of the third of these. In her argument, she claims that if the state acts only on behalf of individuals who have designated it to do so, it is the proper agent for them. But I submit that such a state cannot exist in reality. What sort of state can exist that acts on my behalf, but not on my next-door neighbor's behalf? What sort of state can exist that does not in some way violate my rights or commit aggression against me? No state can exist in this way, period. However, private organizations of insurance or private defense can and may exist and act in this regard in a libertarian society. Now, to answer your question about World War II specifically, Brian, one of the tenets of the 4 items that a libertarian just war would include says that it must be justly conducted. That is, the rights of innocent individuals cannot be knowingly harmed. When we dropped bombs all over Germany, and when we dropped 2 nuclear weapons on Japan, the United States knew for a fact that innocent civilians would be killed. There is no justice in that. World War II was not a just war. I hope this helps, Brian, and thank you so much for the question. And finally for this week, my good friend and former Libertarian Party of Arkansas gubernatorial candidate Mark West, who missed getting the LPAR ballot access by just a few hundred votes, the closest they've ever been to retaining ballot access, asks, what importance do you place on the political process? I know that you no longer vote as part of your voluntarist principles. How does that affect how you view the importance of the political processes empowered by voting, since we can't exempt ourselves from the consequences imposed on us by those who vote? Thanks for this question, Mark, and congratulations on getting so close to ballot access retention for the Libertarian Party of Arkansas. But, I find the political process devoid of any use in actually bringing about significant change in our search for freedom. Your candidacy is a perfect example. You got so close to ballot retention that now the state of Arkansas has completely gone against the state constitution and raised the requirements for you guys to get ballot access. They're not going to let you have freedom. As I've talked about on this show many times, our rulers will never give us the freedom we desire. Yes, they'll throw us a bone every once in a while, like marijuana legalization, which does reduce harm and makes us more free. But then they will tax and regulate people out of business in that same industry to shackle us and steal from us even more as a whole than they did when it was legal. Now, don't get me wrong, I am glad to see the reduction in harm for people who would be going to jail for possession of a plant, yes, but I am not happy to see the increase in harm required by forced regulations and stolen tax money. A good case could actually be made that the harm has been increased for people overall, although it may not look like that at first glance. While the individual harm is reduced for the person who is no longer going to jail, the stolen money from hundreds of thousands or even millions of us now will far outweigh the harm that was done to a few people. However, for those few people, the harm has been significantly reduced. Is it more moral to harm a few people horribly, or to spread that harm and increase the total level of harm while lowering the specific form of harm to each individual across millions? That's a really tough question to answer. Sorry for the tangent there. Back to your original question. Just because we can't shield ourselves 100% from the consequences of the vote does not make the action of voting moral. If I could vote myself or my fellows 100% freedom tomorrow, I would not do it. Why? Because it gives legitimacy to that vote. It shows that anything can be done with that vote. So any progress that is made towards freedom can just as easily, or even more easily, be taken away by the vote the very next time around. It legitimizes the immoral use of force to keep the vote going. It legitimizes my enforcing my will on others, or the other way around. It legitimizes people voting to give our rulers more rights than we have to give them in the first place. By this, I mean that none of us have the moral right to steal money from our neighbors by force. However, voting, supposedly by some magic word, legitimizes the voters giving a group of people that right which we don't possess in the first place. Look, the political process is nothing more than a sham, a smokescreen, to make the lamb more docile on the way to the slaughter, since the lamb believes they actually have a say in how they are slaughtered. No one in the history of the world has voted themselves into freedom. Thinking we can do so today is foolhardy and naive at best, and makes us complicit in our own subjugation at worst. I will not be complicit in my subjugation any longer. I refuse. If they want to take me to the slaughter, they will do so with me kicking and screaming, wailing and fighting the entire way. Thanks everyone for those awesome questions. I do still have one question in my queue, but these took longer to answer this week than I thought they would, so I decided to hold off on that last one until I do this segment again, but it will be at the top of my list for next time. Remember guys, if you want to hear your question answered on the show, send me your questions either in one of the Facebook groups or by emailing ama@thelavaflow.com. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite compost maker, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes of this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on the show, go to thelavaflow.com/123. I have some new supporters this week. J. Corin Taylor has pledged $5 monthly using Bitcoin through Bitbacker. Thanks so much, man. That is awesome. Tristan K. pledged $1 per episode using Patreon. Awesome, Tristan. You rock. And Scott B. sent a $25 one-time donation through PayPal. Scott, thank you so much for that donation. So thanks to J. Corin Taylor, Tristan K., and Scott B., and all of my awesome supporters, I am at $250 per episode, or 50% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Now, in case you haven't noticed, this is the lowest that I've been in a really long time due to losing a couple of patrons, and I'm on the verge of dropping below $250 per episode for the first time in a long time. Ouch. But thank you for all your support, guys, really. Remember, when I do hit this next goal, I'm going to be upping the content I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you, so add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting today. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per-episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon, or monthly using Subscribestar, or using cryptocurrencies through Bitbacker. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your pledge today to help make that happen. I have no new Apple Podcast reviews this week, but if you have a minute and you want to hear your podcast review read right here on the show, please go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and give me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it. Thank you to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.